Welcome to Talking Buffalo, featuring conversations with guests from around the world of sports, media, pop culture, and all things Buffalo. With your host, Patrick Moran.
All right, welcome. What is going on? Welcome to Talking Buffalo, part of the Blue Wire Network. I am your host, Patrick Moran. Thank you, as always, for locking in. It is Tuesday. That means, as always, I'm joined by a good friend, co-host of the Maintenance Day podcast, author of noted hockey Substack, Needle Mover, Joe Yerdon. What's going on, buddy? How you doing?
Needle mover. I'm gonna have to add that one to the list of superlatives for my career. Yeah, no, we're good here. I'm still like amazed at how a lot of us woke up on Monday morning. Holy Jesus, I was barely asleep, and then I could like hear it, and I was like, "What's that?" And then my bed starts shaking, and then the windows are rattling, and I'm like, is that what I think it is? I'm pretty sure it is. And it lasted, I don't know, like 20 seconds, 30 seconds, whatever it was. Then it stops, and like there's, everything's rattling. I'm just like, I'm pretty sure that was an earthquake. And if it wasn't, then I don't want to know what happened. Because if something made that happen, then I don't want to know it. But yeah, that was wild.
We're taping this Monday early evening. And again, if you don't live in Western New York and you haven't heard, there was an earthquake this morning. It was at 6:16 a.m. And by the way, the epicenter of this was in West Seneca. I am in West Seneca. Yeah, like about maybe less than 2 miles away. Like somehow the technology can point almost to like that exact area of a street where it was. It's like off like Indian Church Road. Which again is like maybe 5 to 7 minutes from my house. 3.8 was the magnitude officially, and I'll tell you. So this happened at 6:16 a.m. And I was pretty sound asleep. And I live in an apartment, and there's a small apartment upstairs where a girl lives. And I heard it at first. What did it last, like maybe 20 seconds or something like that? Yes. I don't know how much of it I heard, but man, did I hear it. And when I did, my first thought was somebody smashing something upstairs really, really, really loud, and then took off. And I was like, you know how it is. It's not when you wake up, you're not like processing shit immediately. Like your brain's not really working, or at least I know mine ain't. That's for sure. I didn't know what the hell was going on. I was like, damn. And then about 20 seconds later, I kind of got up and walked towards the window just to see what was going on. Was somebody in my house? Did a car hit it, or a snowplow get started? I don't know what the hell was going on. And then my son, who was too late, I get too lazy or maybe scared to get out of bed. He's like, "What the hell did you hear that? What the hell's going on?" It scared the shit out of me. Woke him up too. That's a good way to start the week, man. Yeah. One way to get up when you don't want to, because I have to tell you right now, my alarm was set for like 2 hours after that. I had no intentions of getting up that early. I'll tell you that. That was crazy.
Yeah, no, I certainly did not, and that was that's a hell of a way to get a start to the day, because it's like you get that adrenaline shot out of your system, and you're like, okay, am I up for the day, or am I going to try to get a couple more Z's? And there's nothing for me to do this week till Thursday. So I was like, I'm going to try to sleep again. So I did, but man, oh man, it's not funny.
No,
we don't experience these kinds of things very often. And a friend of mine, my friend Sarah, lives in Oakland. She listens to this podcast a lot, so she's going to freak out hearing me mention this. But we were talking about how she told me about how when she was young, the 1989 World Series quake happened, and she's describing everything that happened, and I'm like, wow, I would have shit my pants 1,000 times going through something like that. And also something like that hitting here would be major disaster. But even there it was awful, like bridges collapsing, freeways collapsing onto itself, like that was horrible. So it kind of puts it in perspective, because it's like, that earthquake was like what, 10, 20,000 times as strong as like what we got today. And it's like, wow, that's messed up. Boy, physics is insane.
That's, when a hurricane comes in, and I'm asking, maybe you don't know the answer to this. I know I don't. That's why I'm asking you. Like when a hurricane comes, like I know there was many warnings in Florida during the 5 years I lived there. Or I was living there. It was my first full year there when Hurricane Irma came. That was in 2017. But anyway, there's a blizzard coming, when there's a hurricane coming, there's kind of a warning. You got some time to evacuate. Earthquakes, there's not really warnings. Shit just happens, ain't it? Like I know, put it this way, I know for sure that nobody expected this to happen in Buffalo to start your week on Monday morning, but these aren't something that ahead of time are coming. They just kind of happen, ain't it? I think.
It is. It's a very inexact science, and it's something they're working on to try to get some idea of how you can maybe predict how they're going to happen, or if they're coming, or what. And some of it's some really hardcore science that they're trying to figure out, and some of it is just kind of the old-fashioned way where you look for reports of missing pets. And if there's a big uptick in that, it tends to coincide with when there's a big earthquake coming, because animals can sense these things and they want to get the hell out of town. And like that kind of stuff for me is fascinating, but at the same time, you can't predict when it's going to happen. I mean, there's a horrible quake that happened in Turkey and Syria just the other night, or Sunday night, I think it was. And it's horrible what happens there, but you have no way to anticipate these things coming other than knowing that if you're in a place where they happen kind of often, you have to kind of, be on your toes in case, the ground starts to shake underneath you.
Right. It really caught me by surprise. And to your point, when you're talking about with San Francisco, I vaguely remember that. In fact, a game got canceled. I'm pretty sure a game got canceled in the World Series because of that earthquake.
Well, they delayed. That happened before Game 1 of the World Series.
Okay,
right as they were getting ready to do the introductions and all that stuff. And I will never forget where I was and that whole thing going down, because I had just come back from like a trip to the mall with my mom. I was like 10, 11, whatever it was. No, 89. Yeah, I was 10. So, and my sister and I were just came back with my mom from shopping, and I think my dad was home for some reason. I don't know if it was like a weekend night or whatever. I don't know, but the TV was on and the game was on, and then you're watching, and then you hear Al Michaels going, "I think we're having an earthquake," and then the feed cuts, and you're like, "Oh boy, what happened?" And then by the time it comes back, they're doing aerial flyovers of what's going on. You're seeing the players getting their families out of the stands. And then suddenly they're, because they got the helicopter, the blimp flying over Candlestick. And they're going around, and you're just seeing fires and all sorts of stuff happen. And you're like, what in the world happened?
Yeah.
That's the first real natural disaster. Happens live on TV. And it's equal parts fascinating and equal parts just scares the shit out of you.
Yeah. And I saw already Mark Poloncarz had a press conference and talked about how they've already inspected, streets and bridges and everything, and nothing, got damaged. And I'm like, God damn, that's loud and scary, and there was no real damage. I can't fathom how much worse it could be where things did get damaged. I just being there and feeling, and it's not even something you see visually, it's something you physically feel, just how worse. If it would have been worse, how bad it actually would have been. I live in Buffalo. You're in Buffalo now too. We both grew up in New York, and we grew up seeing stories about hurricanes and watching them on TV and stuff like that would hit Miami or other areas and stuff. And you watch, you're like, damn, that looks terrible. It sucks. Well, being in Florida in 2017 when Hurricane Irma hit, it wasn't just, this sucks. It was scary as shit. When it was dark as night out at 11:30 in the afternoon, the morning, and on a Sunday where that shit came, ended up being a little bit of a dud for where we live. Thank God that part. But point is it was just really scary. And this was, again, not a big deal. Lasted 20 seconds. And of course, I already go on social media and it's like, when is the stop with Buffalo? And then you rehash Damar Hamlin and the mass murders and all this stuff. I'm like, let's kind of relax on that a little bit. This was a 20-second thing, but still, it was definitely scary. And if you were able to sleep through this, and I do know some people I saw on my Facebook who didn't even hear it, like, man, you are either you got really hammered the night before and you crashed, you're on some good sleeping aids, or man, you are just a deep sleeper, because I cannot fathom, if you're in this area at least anyway, how somebody did not hear that and wake them up.
Yeah. And having friends in California, you always hear about like the different kinds of quakes there are. Like some of them are just like, big jolt ones, or there's ones where it's like waves, and it depends on how deep it is, how hard, all that stuff. This one was like an explosion one, because this was just like a bang that came through, and you're just like, what in the world was that? Because it sounded like something was like colliding with something else outside, and you're just like, what in the world's going on? And boy, oh boy, it's humbling is what it is.
Right.
Because it puts you in your spot, because what's the worst we got to deal with here? Bad snowstorms, right? Bad snowstorms in the cold. Like that's kind of that's kind of our thing here. And we get spared most of the other stuff, but can't get spared earthquakes, man. They can happen literally anywhere. And like, you don't know how it's going to be, because it's all up to how the plates want to move.
It was certainly a scary morning, or scary moment during the morning, I should say, in Buffalo. We're going to talk some Buffalo Sabres in a few minutes. At the end, I really don't have a title for this segment yet, but just like last week, I found some interesting questions from that salad recipe group on Facebook, kind of just like personal life questions. And I always think whenever possible, it's a good idea to devote, people are listening, hopefully listening or watching this, if not every week, almost every week. And I feel like it's fun to give people an opportunity to know a little bit more about you besides just what you think about the Sabres or hockey or football. You know what I'm saying? So I always enjoy those. One thing that we do talk about on the show from time to time anyway, at least I know I do, is wings. And I did this weekend. I don't even know if you've heard of this place yet, because it's literally brand new. It's in West Seneca. Right. It just opened up. I think it just opened up in January. It's called The Ridge. I don't know if you've heard of it yet.
I haven't, no.
It's on Orchard Park Road in West Seneca. And obviously I got excited about a chance to go try some wings. Like I said, it's been over about a month or so. I finally got there. I went there with my wife on Saturday. I'll tell you what. I have it on my Substack. So if you want to go check out the whole review, go ahead. I'll keep it shorter here on the podcast, but I do like to let people know and talk about new places. The wings here they weren't 9/11 wings. They weren't Elmo's or Barbill, but
that's a tough level to reach.
But exactly, that's my whole thing. And this was a conversation that I had with my wife while we were eating. It's like, first of all, the wings were good. Let me put that out there right now. Okay. Whenever I do these kind of reviews, and I do them for fun, but for whatever reason, I think more people care about my wing takes than they do my sports takes. In fact, I know that. I know that because I put up a post and there's like 3 times as many hits when I put up a wing review as opposed to, Pat thinks this about the Sabres. But anyway, on the pros, so I always do pros and cons. And on the pro side, these wings were big, Joe. They were fucking big wings.
Okay. They
were cooked really well, and they were crispy, the right kind of crispy. And I know you would know this.
Yep.
Sometimes when you go somewhere and wings are crispy, they're tender on the inside, and that's the good crisp. And then sometimes you go somewhere, and I know you've had plenty of wings like this. They're crispy and they're crunchy. Then you bite them, they're dry on the inside. They're not really crispy. They're just overcooked. You know what I'm saying? These wings were not that. These were the good crisp. They were crispy, a good crisp. They were really big, reasonably priced. Reasonably priced by today's standards anyway. It was like $14 for a single order, which is not.
It's not bad.
It's not bad by
by
today's standards for being a new place, doing a nice place. By the way, the Ridge is a really nice place. So they were good. The only thing about them that kept them from being great was we ordered them hot, and they were hot, but the sauce was just really unimaginative, safe. I think that's the word we use. It was safe, man. It was basically your Frank's typical hot sauce.
Frank's and butter, right?
Frank's and butter. More Frank's and butter, obviously, when they're hot. At least that's what it tasted like to me. It was very unimaginative. Like I said, it wasn't terrible. It was not creative. When you go to like 9/11 or Sunny Rides in Lackawanna, I don't think you've been there yet. But anyway,
no.
Even their traditional sauce has a kick to it. It has a unique taste.
Yep.
And this place didn't. It was just normal hot.
Yeah.
Which it's still a good wing. Like I said, well cooked, big wings, but just normal sauce. And I think that's the difference between the great places. Like you go to Barbill or 9/11 or Elmo's, and the sauce that you get it don't taste like a combination of Frank's and butter. But
Yeah,
It's a good place.
there's always that secret ingredient that sets it apart. That to me is the sign that you want to be serious about your wings. If you're putting a lot of effort into your sauce, or you just want something to kind of set you apart from everybody, just because it makes sense. I mean, every place here does it. Like every place brags, we got the best wings in West New York. Yeah, I know everybody does. I get it. But like, but there's different things you can do with the, like, just like the basic buffalo sauce that sets it apart from everything.
Yeah.
And, the one that always stands out for me is 9/11, because I bet anything they use actual garlic in that sauce. I want to believe that that's what they use, because I could swear I could see little bits of garlic in the sauce, and I'm just kind of like, man, this is amazing stuff. But like, you can still do the buffalo flavor and have like other little bits to it, like if you use like a cayenne or something else to give it like a little kick or a little different taste to it. Like, it's a good way to kind of set yourself aside from the crowd. I get it, it's risky because it might not hit people the same way,
right? And sometimes that does happen, Joe. To your point, people don't want to give you the basic plain old Franks and butter ratio, and they do get creative, and it get backfire too, because there are some places where the sauce is unique, but not unique in a good way, know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like, that's unfortunate, because that's on the cook for what their palate is. Because, obviously, I mean, I would hope if you're making a new sauce, you're tasting it to know what it tastes like. but like, that's if you miss on it, then, that kind of sucks. But then I think of a place like Dalmatia Hotel, which is different now.
Oh, it is.
It's not owned by the same people.
Oh, my antenna just went up when you said that.
You
put me on to them, if you remember that a couple of years ago. And God, they were in my top 5. I fucking loved Dalmatia Hotel.
I haven't been back since things changed. They've tried to keep it the same way with all the flavors and all the sauces and everything. So I hope that's not different, because they are really good. But then if the way to differentiate it is to have like that many flavors, you better hit them all, because if you got some stinkers in there and somebody comes in specifically for that one and it stinks, you're gonna be like, all right, I don't want to go back to that place. But
yeah, and you did. I remember that it was a couple of years ago. You turned me on to Dalmatia Hotel. I wasn't living back in Buffalo at the time. I was going to as many places as I could when I'd come back from Florida, because that's when I really started getting into reviewing places and power ranking everywhere. But anyway, I remember that. I walked in, it was like, is that like, it's like Riverside, Black Rock, kind of like, it's not really Town of White. Yeah, it's Riverside, like Black Rock.
Yep.
Really typical Buffalo dive bar. Not,
like neighborhood,
not the greatest neighborhood. Just put it that way. You walk in, you're like, but dude, those wings were the bomb, man. I went there with my wife and my daughter and her boyfriend. I remember that, and my son. It was 5 of us. And we tried 5 different kinds. We got 50 wings. And I was like, and I'm not exaggerating, man. I don't remember what they were anymore, not up top of my head. All of them were fucking good, man. Dalmatia Hotel is the bomb. I really hope with new ownership or whatever's changed, I hope they're the same. Now that we're talking about this, I'm gonna definitely have to go there and
Sorry, I'm laughing because you said the 5 of you went and then you got 5 different kinds, and I was like, you probably pissed off a lot of people that night, because
I'm sure,
because it's a single tiny kitchen. It's one guy cooking all the wings, and like, it goes in order. And like, if you get caught behind a big order, then you're going to be waiting for a while. The night that I went, a buddy of mine was in town visiting. The night that we went, there was some party that was in the back room, and it was like 12 or 15 people, and they must have got like 10 to 12 different, like 10 wings of 10 to 12 different sauces. And like our dinky order, because we got like 10 of something each, and we were there for like 2 hours to wait, because I mean,
sure,
take a while to cook anyways. But this giant party came in and ordered like all these different ones, and we're just sitting there going like, oh man. And like, both of us like held off from eating, because we're just like, we're gonna house these things, maybe grab something else to eat off the menu. No, we were just there waiting, and like we sat at the bar. The bartender was just like, I'm really sorry about this. And then it was like a new cook that night that had done it. It was like the perfect confluence of really slow.
Went there.
Like, my buddy was like, is it like this all the time? I was like, dude, I hope not.
We must have got lucky. I went there during the day with the family, and there wasn't really anything going on except some guy played Freebird on the jukebox like 3 times over the course of an hour. But yeah, I love Dalmatia Hotel. Circling back to this new place, the Ridge. So yeah, the pros, the wings were cooked great. They were plenty crispy, reasonably priced. We also got fingers. Those the taste on those was good. Got fried. By the way, the fries, elite fries at the Ridge. Okay. And beyond the food, what's really cool about this place too, so they have a restaurant, plenty of tables and booths, plenty of sitting room. Then they have a bar, which I wish was a little bit bigger. It's a little bit on the narrow side because this is a busy place. I mean, it's a busy place. It's pretty big. It's kind of, it almost feels like it should be downtown. It's like that kind of brewery. But anyway, the bar could get really smushed and packed. But then on the other side of the building, they have a tap room, which is the brewery. And this is the only place I know of in Buffalo. I know there's a couple in Florida that I've been to them, but in Buffalo, as far as I know, this is the only one where, so you want to try some beers, you know, they got their craft beers up on a wall. You pay for up to 40 ounces. You prepay for 40 ounces, and they give you a card. And instead of telling the bartender you want this, and that, you take the card, you take your glass, you put it in front of the tap, and you swipe your card, and you pour however many ounces you want.
Okay.
So you get up to like 40. After 40, the pain in the ass part is after 40 ounces, you got to go back up and refill it. That's kind of their way of making sure that somebody's not smashed. It's probably the biggest reason why they do that, which it makes sense, but it also can be a pain in the ass because sometimes you might be buying them for a buddy too, so you can go up there a lot more. And they really, I heard that they're going to be brewing their own shit, which they haven't done yet. So the selection was like, but it's a really big open area and cool. Look at me, I'm reviewing restaurants and wings. I'm talking Buffalo. Hey, this is talking Buffalo, man. This ain't just talking Sabres or talking Bills. So anyway, and the only thing is, like I said, I didn't like I thought the sauce was a little bit bland. Now the fingers, the temperature was a little bit cold on the fingers too. I wouldn't notice that. But drink wise, price wise, comparable to other places. Like if you go to Resurgence or all the other breweries, it's kind of the same. But I did, because I am that guy, and you know this, like when we did our show at Casey's, I try to find the cheap beer because I'm a big cheap guy, and we came up with Utica Club when Joe and I went there last time. So they got a lot of pints and beers. You know, you got your EBC blueberries, your Sam Adams, all that stuff, Guinness. You're paying like between $6.50 to $8 for a pint, which is kind of sort of standard for that kind of vibe. But I did find Miller Lite, 22-ounce Miller Lights, 22-ounce big boys, $4. That is cheap as
like
shit.
The tall boy cans or just the giant?
No, the tall boy drafts. 22-ounce Miller Lite drafts for $4, man. So you can go sit in the back, and Fancy Pants Joe wants to have his some kind of, red ale or whatever back there and pay $8 a beer. Go be my guest. I'm going to go to the bar. I'm going to get my $4 22-ounce Bud Light or Miller Lite, not Bud Light. And then I'll meet you in the back. Good place. So all in all, it's on Ridge Road, kind of like where the Big Lots and New Aldi's is. Nice place. I recommend it for sure.
Yeah, sacrificing flavor for volume. I listen. We all got days where we want to do that. It's I respect it. I respect it as a former college drinker, post-college drinker. I respect that, but sometimes you gotta get a little different flavor going.
Yeah. One last thing too, and this is not necessarily about this place. You kind of mentioned this earlier. I don't think you can understate. It is annoying to hear and say all the time, Buffalo has the best wings by far, but they really do. And I think of a place like the Ridge, and I'm like, all right, if I've done 100 places, this place would probably rank around 30, somewhere around that, like right around the cusp of being in the top third of all the wing places I've had. Good wings, not great, but good. You take this place and you put it in Florida, I'd run you over with my car to be able to go there and get the wings, because that's the difference between Buffalo and a lot of other states and regions of this country. The wings are just the average wings in Buffalo. They were like, yeah, these are pretty good wings. You and I could sit there, we have a couple beers, we get these wings, we'll be like, these are good wings. Not going to rave about them. But in Florida, you'd be like, oh my God, you kill somebody to get these wings. You know what I'm saying? That's how good they are here.
I stopped. I had some drinks and food with a buddy of mine in Arizona after the Sabres Coyotes game, and we got order of wings, and but at least it was like different flavor stuff, and like he felt bad. He's like I'm sure you get enough of these at home. I was like, dude, whatever. I was like, something to snack on's good, and like they were fine, like totally acceptable, like I'm not trying to put it up against it, but like, we weren't getting buffalo sauce. We were getting something like a bourbon, a bourbon barbecue sauce, or like like a sweet chili lime sauce, or like, things like that, where it's more about the flavor and the sauce you're putting on it. But it can't beat what you get here. It's just, this is the best city for it. It's fine.
It's not even close either. That's the whole thing. It's literally not even close. Earlier on Twitter, so again, I told you later in the show, I'll ask you a couple of questions. You kind of got an idea where I'm going with those. However, this, I don't think I know you don't have an idea that I'm going to ask you about this, but
okay.
I went on Twitter because I was thinking about it, and I asked people, I said, what is the first movie that you could ever remember seeing at a movie theater? Not the first movie you've ever seen. The first time where, well, you didn't grow up in Buffalo, but wherever town or whatever movie theater you could think of where you grew up, what is the first movie that you've seen in a theater that you can remember? Now, it may not end up being the first. You might have seen something when you were younger. You just don't really remember it. But like, when's the first time? I'm kind of putting you on the spot here. When's the first movie that you could actually remember seeing at the movie theater? Do you remember?
Does a drive-in count?
Sure.
Okay. No, because my parents would take my sister and I to the drive, because they would want to see movies. And, finding a babysitter was probably not that easy back in the day.
Right.
I mean, we had babysitters and whatever, but we went to the drive-ins kind of, not regularly, but enough. But the earliest one I remember, and this, I mean, stuff at the drive-in doesn't always come out at the exact same time. It's always a little bit after the normal release. But the first one I remember is E.T. So, and like, I'm talking, I was young, like maybe 4, maybe 5. But I remember going to see E.T. and I, my parents would, well, my mom definitely would not let it. She's like, you cried so much. And I was like, I remember that. I was like, E.T. had to leave. It was sad. And like, even watching it now, you watch it, you're like, oh man, what was it? Like, it hits you. And here I am, like 4 years old, like bawling because, it's sad. And like, you're a kid, so you identify with Elliot and
sure,
the kid sister and all that stuff. So it's, but that was one I remember. Also, Return of the Jedi. That was another drive-in one that we did, because my parents who didn't like Star Wars back then. So, but yeah, Return of the Jedi was one. But it's around ish the same time. I don't know which one would have been first, but yeah,
it's
actual theater. I don't know. I don't know if I could pick out an actual theater one, but yeah.
It's funny. I laughed when you said that. I'll tell you why in a second, but that was a very popular answer. By the way, because you said your parents, it would be hard to get a babysitter, to take a kid to the movie. So when I threw these out there, I'm expecting a lot of family-oriented movies. And there were a couple people that had like Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street. I'm like, what fucking kind of parents did you have that were taking you could have been more than 8, 9, 10 years old, and they're taking you to go see a Nightmare on Elm Street? I'm like, what the hell's going on here? But to your point, E.T. was a popular one. And I'll tell you what, I laughed because, well, me too. I can't remember. It's
really?
It's one of these two movies. If you're watching here on YouTube, it's up on the screen. It's either E.T. or it's Rocky 3. Ooh. And I looked it up today. They both came out within a month of each other in 1982. I think Rocky actually came out maybe 2 weeks before E.T. I can't remember which one I watched first, but I do know that I've seen both of these in the movie theater. I seen E.T. at the Showplace Theater on Grand Street when it was actually a movie theater before it became a music venue. And I don't remember where I saw Rocky 3, but I know my Aunt Ann took me, and I know it was probably like the Boulevard Mall, like one of the movie theaters around that area. I remember being in Amherst. But yeah, E.T. was such I like 200 replies I got it on this tweet so far on Monday, but E.T. was probably that and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That seemed to be the two most popular answers.
That's a good delineation of generations right there.
It really is.
TMNT was what, 1990, I think?
Yeah. You could
91, yeah.
Somewhere in the early 90s. Yeah, you could definitely tell the age gaps with people. Like, I don't need to go on Twitter and say, yo, how old are you? I can say, yo, what's the first movie that you can remember seeing? Now, older people were talking about, like Saturday Night Fever and stuff like that. You can tell that those people are a little older.
You got me thinking about this because I'm just trying to think specifically of theater like experiences, and like the drive-in ones stand out because you're in your pajamas, you're in the car. It's it's totally different. You go run around in the grass or something in between movies. Yeah, all that stuff. But in the theater, maybe it was Back to the Future. That might be that.
I think I've seen that in the theater.
Maybe Temple of Doom, Indiana Jones, the Temple of Doom. I don't know. It's one of those. I definitely remember seeing Batman in '89 in the theater.
Me too.
And Indiana Jones: The Last Crusade came out that same summer, and I think we went to go see that too because my dad loves it. So we might have went to go see that one too. I mean, that was '89, just ridiculous. That was such an insane summer for movies.
One more for me too. Yeah, Batman came out in '89 with Michael Keaton. I definitely seen that. Again, this would have been. We're close enough in age. The Police Academy series, close enough. The Police Academy. I remember at the Showplace again on Grand Street. I saw the first Police Academy at the Showplace Theater, and that came out in 1984. I was like 12 or something like that. It was I do remember seeing that.
Just unlocked a memory there. Keep talking because I need to get them.
But I sent Joe down a rabbit hole. But yeah, like I growing up on the West Side, that used to be the thing. Once I got to be like 11 or 12, started walking with a group of people, never by myself. And plus, those were different times. It felt a little bit safer to walk. But that's technically, I guess, in Black Rock, the Showplace Theater. But I would walk from the West Side. It'd be about a good 20-minute walk. We'd stop at Santora's on Grand Street, get something to eat. And then we would go walk down to the Showplace Theater all the time. Again, this was years before it became ultimately a music venue.
Okay. So another movie I saw in 1989, Police Academy 6, because me and one of my buddies went to go see that. Like, our parents dropped us off. We're 10 years old, like going in to see this movie. And I remember it just being such a piece of crap. But like, we still laughed because by that point, they took out all the boobs and most of the swearing in those movies. Like, I think the first one was the only one that was really kind of like in that sort of like Porky's range of comedy movies. By the time I got to 6, City Under Siege, like that was such a dog shit movie. But like my buddy and I definitely went to go see it, and we left and we're like, that kind of stunk.
I like the Police Academy, the early ones anyway. I forgot the guy's name. His first name was Michael, but the guy who would beatbox, the guy who could make
Michael
Winslow.
Yeah.
Michael Winslow. Yeah, he was really cool. I was fascinated by the sounds he can make. Real quick here, and then we're going to take a break, come back on the other side, and we'll talk a little Sabres here. We're going to skip.
Sorry.
I sent Joe down this rabbit hole. I don't blame you. I spent all day thinking about this. That's why I put out that tweet. I literally spent half my Monday looking at the responses, and it would trigger some kind of memory for me. What were you thinking?
See, no, because you should have asked me this earlier, so I could have had this all lined up, so we didn't drag this out. My same friend and I went to go see Star Trek V. What the hell was that? Star Trek V, Final Frontier. Also in 1989. So apparently I lived in the movie theaters in 1989.
Going to the movies used to be a lot of fun, man. It really did. Not that it's terrible now. It's just not something that I really that I do anymore. I think the only time I ever go to the movies now is pretty much when a new MCU movie will come on. I try to go see those in the theater. Besides that, not so much anymore. All right, so like I said, we're going to skip Bills talk today. There's not really much to talk about. Plus, plenty of Bills content on this show pretty much throughout the entire week.
You don't want to talk about Stephon Diggs checking out cheerleaders?
Chicks? No, I like Stephon. Let Stephon be, man.
Dude, I was cracking up, especially responded to somebody on Twitter about it. He's like, yo, you're going to get me in trouble.
Yeah, he did. Who did he say that to? I can't remember. It was a funny ass tweet. I love Stephon Diggs, man. He's my kind of guy. I hope he stays in Buffalo for the rest of his career. We'll skip Bills talk today, though, but I am going to ask you before we go to the break. Obviously, there's the Super Bowl this week. 2 number 1 seeds, the Kansas City Chiefs, Philadelphia Eagles. Without deep diving into the game, I want to know, put it on the record here. Who you got? Who do you like?
I feel like I got to answer this before knowing Mahomes' condition, really, like how good is that ankle going to be? I don't, I'm leaning Eagles pretty well, because I think they've like the last few weeks of the season, they look kind of like, is this, I don't know if these guys got it. And then, they came out whooped up on the Giants, their first game. And you're like, oh, okay. Yeah, they're for real. And Niners, whatever, that ended up being an exaggerated practice for them.
Sure.
I love a lot of what the Eagles are doing. Just, Hurts is playing well. Miles Sanders is running the ball pretty well. They're throwing the ball decently. The defense is playing pretty well too. But I don't know, man. Kansas City, you don't want to bet against Mahomes is the thing. Like, and like that's the thing that's preventing me from really going whole hog Eagles. But like it's a slight edge to Philly for me. But I don't know, man. Mahomes can do magic stuff out there. So if he has a game, that's a really interesting matchup. But I'm leaning Philly in this one.
I'm leaning Kansas City in this one. For Mahomes to win, if he wins the Super Bowl this year without Tyreek Hill, I mean, I think you already could put the bed to talk about who's the best quarterback. It's Patrick Mahomes. He's just amazing. And Travis Kelce's just been incredible too this season. I mean, it's just, and I'll tell you, I think the Philadelphia defense is better. I'm not going to say that otherwise. The Philadelphia defense is definitely better. But don't sleep on the Chiefs front four, their ability to be able to get after quarterback, man. When we saw Chris Jones just own the Bengals last week, and I can see a scenario where that happens again. Now, both these teams, especially Philly, man, their interior, their offensive line is great. It's something the Bills need to strive for. It could go either way. I like number one playing number one too. I mean, I obviously I'd rather the Bills would be playing, but this is a fun matchup. It's going to be a good game. By the way, it's the first time in NFL history 2 black quarterbacks are starting in the Super Bowl. I think that's absolutely awesome. It's almost taboo. I don't care if it's taboo to say because we're in Buffalo, whatever. I love Patrick Mahomes. I love watching him play football. I think he's good. I think he's the best quarterback in the NFL. And winning this second Super Bowl already, so 5 years, he's been in 3 Super Bowls, and this would be his second win if they were to win. It's on his way, man, to being potentially, Tom Brady's the best of all time right now, but this might be a conversation 7-8 years from now that gets revisited. And, winning a Super Bowl for Mahomes this week kind of lays the groundwork for that.
Yeah, I usually end up finding myself rooting for Mahomes to do well. Because, it's not like he has like a story of hardship growing up or anything. I mean, his dad was a professional athlete. Watched his dad pitch constantly in the majors. But it's just such a cool story, and he's basically the guy responsible for Cliff Kingsbury getting an NFL head coaching job. And it's like, wow, how did that guy get a job? And it's like, well, he had the best quarterback in the last 15 years show up at his front step and play awesome in that offense. But he's so fun to watch. And it's just a lot of the innovative ways that he just finds ways to get plays made. His elusiveness, like, dude very rarely takes a big hit. And he just finds ways to get loose. Like, he'll run it. Maybe he's not going to run it so much now, but didn't really stop him against Cincy. He still took off a couple of times, but obviously the biggest play of the game was him taking off running. But man, he's so fun to watch. So is Jalen Hurts. Like, this is a big stage for Hurts, because I don't know how many people were really watching Philly a whole lot this season. I saw him week 1, and I was like, this dude was kind of crap last year. Let's see what goes. And then he's running everywhere in Detroit. I'm like, oh, well, it's his coming out party. Great. He's going to be a beast this season. So, but yeah, I'm excited about the matchup though. The game is going to be a lot of fun to watch. I hope. If it ends up turning into a romp one way or the other, that's a huge disappointment. But man, Mahomes is just, it's like, it's a little Brady-ish. It's a little Montana-like. It's, all the guys that in a big spot, if they're down and if you need a rally, if he's got the ball, chances are pretty good he's going to come through. Like that's the part with him that always sticks out with me is that, you put him in a difficult spot. He'll find a way to make it work. And that to me it makes him really exciting.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, Jalen Hurts right now feels like a really good story this year. He's emerged, but if he goes and wins this game, I think he catapults himself right up there with at least in the same category as a Mahomes and a Burrow and a Josh Allen. It'll be fun. All right, let's take a real quick break and then come back on the other side, talk a little Buffalo Sabres. All right, I'm back with Joe Yerdon. So let's all right, let's turn our attention to Sabres here. So the All-Star break was this weekend, and now the Sabres are on a bye this week. They return to action Saturday afternoon against Calgary. Looking at the numbers here. All right, 50 games they played, 26-20-4, 56 points. One back as we tape this on Monday, one back of Pittsburgh, 4 of Washington in the wild card. They got 3 games in Hanover, Washington, Pittsburgh has a game in Hanover, Buffalo, but they'll be playing tonight, Tuesday, as people are watching this Tuesday night. They're at home against Colorado. I don't know. Let's start here, I guess. Your thoughts on, at this point of the season, into February, compared to maybe what we were talking about and thinking about, maybe in early October when the season was starting. Just the Sabres being legitimately in a playoff race. And again, we're into February and a little over 30 games. 32 games left.
Yeah, 32 left. Less than a month now until the trade deadline. So business about to pick up. I mean, the Islanders just made a big splash. The Islanders are a team that's right there in the chase for the playoffs with them. They added Bo Horvat from Vancouver. It's a real nice pickup. I don't like a lot of what the Islanders have going for them because their offense struggles regardless because they play a Stone Age system of hockey and they rely almost too heavily on their goalie to win games, which might sound a little familiar to Buffalo fans. I think maybe it's very possible, but it's I mean, with the Sabres though, it's a fascinating development because when we talked in October about this team, we were just like, this is going to be a building year. Like
right.
They're going to take they're going to take steps forward because if they don't, then everything's in deep trouble. Well, that's not the case. They've taken some real big steps. And I feel pretty confident about saying that. I don't think the final 30 games of the season are gonna turn ugly. It might come back to bite me at some point, but I think this team's progress on the way up is really strong and it's really good. They're mentally tough. They're tougher than I think maybe than I would have thought given how young they are.
Do you see a difference, Joe? So you've been covering this team all year. You've been in the locker room all year from, the first practice at camp through where we're at in February. Do you notice a difference maybe in terms of confidence? We'll use the word swag, whatever you want to use. Do you sense it as a different vibe in the locker room? Players that you talked to in October, maybe compared to what you're hearing from them now? Does just the whole overall vibe of the locker room seem different now?
It's winning changes a lot of stuff. To begin with, I think with them being so young, they were going to be kind of light anyways. But I mean, you see the way these guys get along in the room and they're, constantly, joking around and having fun. And it's not like, any mean spirited kind of jokes where, that was, you'd see some of that stuff beforehand, but
a lot of them are in the Bahamas now, right?
A whole bunch of them went to the Bahamas for vacation. Some of them went together and brought the girlfriends with them and whatever. I mean, they check Instagram for any of these guys. You'll find them hanging on the golf course or whatever. But yeah, and some guys ended up there just by coincidence. Like Alex Tuck wasn't going with those guys, with like Bryson and Darlene and Krebs and those guys, but just happened to be there anyways. And he's kind of okay. He wanted to let the kids have some fun, and then he ends up in the same place as the kids. That's not funny. That Alex Tuck's old, but 26-year-old and 20-year-old. It's a little bit of a different speed.
Sure.
At that point, but I mean, these guys just get along great, and it's really encouraging to see that going on. And it's obviously the wins help. I mean, that's a big part of it. But I think you mentioned swag, and I think there's a little bit of that, especially with how Thompson's able to score goals and some of the stuff that you see Olofsson, he's able to do to score, and even some of Quinn's goals. Like, there's a lot of swag, there's a lot of skill But it's confidence. I think it's confidence that's the bigger deal for this team because they have it. They have confidence in their abilities. They have confidence in each other. And then, if they get down in games, they've had enough experiences that they can come back in those games to be able to do it. So a lot of that lining up right now, it's like a perfect storm for a young group like this to be able to get into a race like this and see where things go. The one thing about them, and maybe it's just from how the room is after a loss, because I've seen enough of that over the past, but after a loss it feels like it's crushing, like it's end of the world. But next day it's mostly gone, unless some of us dingbats start asking questions about like how sad it made them to lose the night before. But it's something where like they're able to put these things behind them. Like nothing really weighs on them on a day-to-day aspect. Even guys that have been going through it, like Middlestad or Olsen, like they're going through it and you can tell that they are, but it's not something that's completely tearing their game apart. It's something that they're like, I know I can get out of this and I will. And they have. And that to me says a lot about how the coaching staff is able to keep everybody on the ball and on the point and loose.
Let me run off a couple Sabre All-Star break stats right now. Tage Thompson, 5th in the league in points with 68. He's tied for 3rd in goals with 34, behind only who's he behind? Connor McDavid and who's the other guy from Boston? I'm trying to find it.
David Pastrnak.
David Pastrnak, yeah. So he's 3rd in the NHL in goals right now, or tied, I should say, at this point. Dahlin, 2nd among all defensemen in points with 55 and goals 14, both second only Carlson of San Jose. And by the way, he's also a plus 19, and he's averaging 26 minutes per night on the ice, man. What a workhorse.
Yep.
Alex Tuck, 24 goals, 55 points in 50 games. And by the way, I couldn't help myself. I had to go look it up. Jack Eichel, conversely, 34 points so far in 38 games, and he's got 15 goals.
Still Alex Tuck,
pretty good. Alex Tuck is actually outproducing him right now a little bit. I'm not sure that's going to last. Just saying. Jeff Skinner, 20 goals and 50 points. This is his second straight year of at least 20 goals after scoring 21 combined in 112 games. The Ralph Kruger era, between the 2019 to the 2021 seasons. Those guys, let's just stick to those 4 or 5 guys right now. Are there any of those numbers kind of like really surprise you?
I think if I didn't know that the 3 forwards played on the line together, I think that would surprise me a little bit. But knowing that that they're one of the top lines in the NHL, like those numbers make sense. But the fact that they all have 20 or more, and Tage has got 34, is wild. Yeah. Like that. There's like what, 4, maybe 5 other teams that have a bunch of guys with 20 or more goals, or 50 or more points, and like it's Toronto, or it's Toronto. I think Winnipeg's another one. I forget the list, but if you're in that company, that's pretty good company to be in. Like these are teams that are going to be playoff teams. These are teams that are threats to to be in that Stanley Cup race. Now Buffalo's not at that level yet, and that's the hope that they'll be at that level within maybe a year or two. But the fact that you've got guys in that position and they're not a one-line team, I think that for me is the big thing, because we've seen that before in the past. I mean, let's think of some of the past, Eichel, Reinhart, Pominville, Skinner, Pominville, Eichel, excuse me.
Yeah.
Like that was a big one. And then it was Skinner, Eichel, Reinhart, which became a thing for the rest of that season. And those guys were tremendous together. Skinner scores 40, Eichel has, monster season, Reinhart has a great season. Like, we've been down that road before with a great line, but like there was nobody else producing. The 4th line was still solid, but like they didn't score goals, and 2nd and 3rd lines were not great. This case, like you've got the kid group with Quinn, Peterka, and Cousins. I know they go through it sometimes. It's hot and cold. It's going to happen with a couple of rookies, but Cousins has been awesome. He's on a pace for like 30 goals, 65.
Yeah, he's got 17 right now. Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, he's having a great year. He's going to get a nice contract soon-ish.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah.
What have you heard, man? Chad DeMonicis dropped something on Twitter a couple days
Yeah.
ago. Said he heard that they're getting close to a deal. Are you hearing similar stuff that something could happen soon?
I whoever Chad's source is, I trust them with that kind of information because I think they want to get it done. Obviously, I think they want to get it done before he cracks 30 goals and 70 points, maybe. Because when you think about it, like last year, Tage had 38 goals, 70 whatever points. Forget what it was. 79, 69. I forget. Either way, it's kind of similar to what Cousins is doing this year, just productivity wise. I mean, it's not as many goals. Like he's not going to score 40, close to 40.
Right.
But if he pops 30 and has, 35, 40 assists, how much is that worth? To me, that's like, well, Tage Thompson's getting paid $7 million a year. So how about it? Like if you want to meet him at that, cool. Yeah. I think the Sabres would sign that tomorrow.
I like them being proactive and trying to get some of these guys locked up like they did Samuelson earlier this year.
It helps you figure out what your cap's going to be in a couple of years because you got a big fat deal with Dahlin coming. Like, I mean, that's going to be the big one. And then Power, Power's going to have to get his second contract in another year. I think it is. I think it would be like next summer they could start negotiating it. I think I may be wrong about that, but it's coming up and chances are the team's going to want to lock him up too. I would imagine. I can't picture wanting to go bridge deal with him and then possibly having him pull a Dahlin and then suddenly he's getting paid the same kind of money.
Right.
But like, these are the things you gotta get taken care of right now. Like, they know who their core is. They know who their main guys are. And and fortunately enough for them, their contracts are coming up relatively soon. So they can get that taken care of. But yeah, I mean, I'm losing my train of thought here, Pat. It's just
I'm just throwing so many names because it's just like I didn't anticipate if we would have had this conversation months ago that I would be throwing so many names at you that are doing positive things. And I didn't even mention guys like Victor Olofsson's got 23 goals already this year. I don't think a lot of people saw that coming.
No.
Middlestad has not been spectacular, but we talked about him on the show last week. He's already got a career high 28 points. Looking at Quinn's got 8 goals and 20 points. Paterka 7 and 19. Krebs 6 and 13. Owen Power didn't score forever, and then he pops in goals in 3 straight games. He's averaging 23.38 minutes of ice time per night, which is less than 3 minutes less than Dahlin. So he's another workhorse out there. There's a lot to be excited about with this team. It's going to be an interesting couple of weeks. You mentioned the trade deadline coming up in about a month, and it's like they need to be within striking distance, and then you clearly see them being a buyer. Now, when we say trade deadline buyer, that doesn't mean that they're going to be picking up, a guy, a 30 or 40 goal scorer, but a couple of reinforcements. You definitely I think you mentioned this last week too. Defense is something that you could definitely see them addressing here.
Yeah, I think. And it's not going to be a dazzling name or anything like that, but a guy who's a really good penalty killer. I think that's an area I think they're going to want to take a look at because the penalty kill's been a little bit tough, and you need somebody who's, and I know, Ilya Lyubushkin doesn't have a lot of favor with the fans. He takes he's pretty good for one bad penalty to take per game, which, you don't like to see that, but somebody out of that sort of defensive realm where if you can put them out on the PK and they can help save a lot of problems out there, I think that's the kind of guy you address. They've got more than enough, assets to use if they want to make a trade. Like they can make a big splash trade if they want to. They got the prospects, they got the picks, they got all that stuff. But that's not how Kevin Adams really operates. Like he takes care of what needs to be done. Lance and I got talking about this on the latest episode of Maintenance Day. Cheap plug. But we got talking about this and like looking through Kevin Adams' draft history, like he just took care of business. If there's guys that needed to be moved out, he took care of that. Like he moved them out. Like, some of those deals didn't end up turning out all that great. Trading Brandon Montour for a 3rd round pick. Whoops. Montour is a top 5 scorer on defense now with Florida. Thanks, Ralph. But it's but other times, like there are trades that just make sense. And I think that's kind of where Adams is dealing from here, because he doesn't have to make, like, there's not a big blow up trade that you have to make here. Would it be great to have Timo Meier with this group? Hell yes. Timo Meier is incredible. But are you going to give up some big, prospect guys, or maybe certain guys that are on the roster right now that you really like to get them and then pay them $9 million a year? I don't think that's the move they're going to make. But if somebody's trying to hand something away, they've got, if there's a defenseman that's worth grabbing, they've got three second round picks coming up this year. One of those is got to go for somebody. And it won't be, ideally it won't be an overpay kind of thing for, like a number 8 type, 7-8 defenseman, and you're dropping a second round pick to get him. Like it's going to be very specific needs, because I think, and I've said this before, I think Adams knows he deserves to reward these guys to make a run at it. But it's really tough because you've got so many guys in the lineup where they're young and they're proving themselves. And this is the exact situation you want them to be in, so they get a taste of it and see how they can perform and then learn from it.
I would say the best compliment I could pay to Sabres right now, and I'm going to preface this by saying the game did not go well at all last week. But I work a second job. I work a couple nights a week, and I miss a lot of Sabres games because of that. Sometimes I'll catch highlights on the internet afterwards. Once in a while, I do DVR the game. Sometimes I'll watch the replay on MSG when I'm in my home office, catching up with stuff, whatever. Boy, I watch them most of the time, but I don't always get to watch it live. And I usually don't give a shit. That was the point I'm trying to make. Last Wednesday, the Sabres were playing Carolina, the last game before the break, and I had to work. And I was legitimately, genuinely upset and annoyed that I had to work and miss a Sabres game. And I can't remember the last time that, like, had I had my choice, I would have not worked so I could have watched the game live in that time. And again, the game did not go well at all. But my point is, interest in the Sabres is getting to a point now, and I can only speak for myself on this, where I say I would have missed a night of work to be able to watch that game. It's fun to see the fans getting back into it.
Yeah,
it's not necessarily leaning too much into attendance soaring at this point. I think that'll come over time. You got to win more. But interest in this team is night and day than it was from maybe 18 months ago, and even 4 or 5 months ago. You could feel the confidence in fans starting to grow in this team, starting to believe in them.
Yeah, and the thing with Sabres fans is that you can't sell hope to them anymore. They've been sold hope for the last 10 years.
Sure.
Like that I think that's a, yeah. And listen, I know Bills fans and Sabres fans started screaming at each other. I know everybody's like, well, they're the fans of the same team. No, buddy. The diehards are much different about how they handle their teams. Diehard Sabres fans, they might like the Bills, but they're not dyed in the wool. Mafia folks, they like the Sabres, but they're not hanging around with them when they're losing. Like, the diehard Sabres fans have been there through the tanks, through all the losses. Yeah, they've watched this team just, take a big dump on the ice. Like, for years. Yeah. So they're hardened. And if you try to sell hope to them, it gets met with just the turn, you turn your back on that. You're just like, whatever, man. Like, we had hope with Eichel. We had hope with Reinhart. We had hope with those guys. Like, you told us before, like, it's all changing. It's all coming. Then it didn't come. And then it got worse. Like things somehow got worse. But right now you're seeing the results prove themselves out to this point. The team's fun to watch. They score goals. They win games. And you can see a future with them, which is, with the previous group of guys, you could see it on some nights and some stretches. If they rattle off like 8, 9, 10 in a row, you're like, whoa, okay, here they are, they've arrived. You don't have that with this group necessarily. You have consistency, you have consistent wins, and now it's like, okay, now we're really building something. And now you look down the road, there's a bunch of hot prospects coming. The young guys you got in the lineup are already killing it. So you're like, okay, here we go. But it's the proof's in the pudding, I'm using so many cliches here. I'm making myself boring. But this is the thing they've been waiting on. The fans have been waiting on this, and to get the fans back in the seats, just keep doing this. Like that's what's got to take care of business. That's the whole part of getting the attendance back up and everything, because those first few years of the tank, 13, 14, 15, fans were still turning out pretty heavily because everybody's like, we've been here. Like we got to keep our season tickets because once we get these guys up here, playoffs, we got to get our playoff tickets. That was always the design. Right. It didn't happen. So then people are like, well, those guys are out of here. Fuck this. I ain't buying tickets. Come back and call me when you're winning games. And no, they are, but you got to keep doing it. That's the thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we end with I got 5 random questions for you about a couple of things. I did want to ask you. So, you've been covering the Sabres full-time this season, hockey full-time writing, and they're on a break right now. It ends up being a 10-day break before they have a game, which again resumes on Saturday. Is it cool for you to kind of take a step back and relax, maybe catch up on a little rest? I know you well enough to know that you're not really catching up on much rest, but anyway, you know what I'm saying? Just kind of recharge the batteries a little bit, chill out a little bit. Or do you kind of get, when a team doesn't play for, 10 days after they're playing every other day, or they're at practice and you got things to, to cover and discuss and write about, you get a little bit bored when you have a 10-day break like this?
You do a little bit. The break is good. I mean, you need some space, and unfortunately it coincides with the same time that Rochester's going on their all-star break. So
right.
My thought was like, maybe I'll finally get to go to Rochester and see them play. And it's nope. They're also not playing. But it's a good chance to just kind of breathe for a bit. Cause I step away from it and then I'm like, I don't realize how much stuff I'm writing often enough. And I always think I'm not writing enough. I certainly don't think I'm writing enough for my own website, but that's going to change. Don't worry about that. But certainly with everything that I've been doing for Bleacher Report, and I've done a ton of AP games this past month while John Warrow's been handling the Bills beat. So the past month was a lot. So, and the schedule was and like not covering road games helps out, but you're still watching them. You're still staying up to watch the games and listen to the press conferences, all that stuff. But 15 games in 28 days it's a lot, man. Sure. But we get to get back into that level of constant gameplay starting right after they get back from California. It's going to be, that's it. Like 3 of the next 4 weeks, they'll have 4 games in a week. Like, it's, a lot of them are back-to-back games. Sometimes it's a home road back-to-back, there's, they're playing the Leafs twice in that span. They're playing the Capitals twice in that span. Like there's a lot of big games on their schedule coming up. Like you go through like the final 32 games, man, like there's a lot of games where you're like, this is a big one. They're going to need this. Like you got to get at least a point out of this one. So it's a good chance to kind of recharge, but like you got to get your mind in order for what might be a really interesting race to the end of the year, because man, oh man, if this stays on this level, it's gotta be tight. It's gotta be real close.
It's going to be a lot of fun. I'll tell you that. I'm very much for the first time in a handful of years, I'm really looking forward to the stretch run of a Sabre season. It's every year I get a little bit optimistic before the season starts, and then, well, things happen with the Sabres. But this year is kind of fun to look forward to the back end of the schedule and have some meaningful games going late into the season. Funny, you mentioned John Worrell. I got some news to report here. John Worrell, former mortal enemy of mine, sworn enemy forever. We have actually mended fences, man. We're cool with each other now.
Wow.
I follow him on Twitter. He follows me on Twitter. And I thought of something funny. In fact, this is how I know John and I are pretty good right now, because I used to, during the peak of our fighting on social media, which quite frankly, I used to think was fun, and I miss that a little bit. But anyway, I would intentionally troll John, who, he's an adamant music guy, and he likes some weird eclectic shit that I don't even know who these artists are. Props to him, though. That's not an insult to him. That's just saying, he's got a very diverse musical mind, and I do not. But anyway, I would troll his ass on purpose with Toto. I love fucking Toto. John hates him. and I would always troll him and talk shit to get him going. But anyway, I saw it was like an 80s retro Twitter account. Africa was the number one song. I don't remember how many years ago it was on this date, but as we're taping this, Africa was number one on Billboard by Toto. And I tweeted that. I said, "Oh, John, we're all rejoices." And he didn't even say anything bad back to me. He actually liked the tweets. I was like, damn, I guess John and I really are pretty much on good on good terms right now. So, hey, man, you never know. Hell does freeze over, folks. So
see, I think that just means you have to pick another weird song from the 80s to push his buttons. My suggestion, Putting on the Ritz by Taco.
I don't like
that's
that
like
song.
Your next favorite great song. And then see
I mean, I can lie to him. I can troll him with it, but I don't like that song. I will dig my feet in the sand, though, and I'll battle that. Africa's by Toto is an amazing song, and that Toto's just a really good group. But anyway, all right, let's get to I did this last week. We're going to do it again. So I plucked some questions from a Facebook group called Salad Recipe, which it does have stuff to do with salad, but these questions, they got nothing to do with salad. These are just kind of random personal questions that I kind of want to get your answers to, and I'm sure some fans listening will be or watching. They'll be interested to know. Let's go. 5 of them. Number 1, best singing voice of all time.
We've done numerous top 5 drafts on like rock singers and singers and all that, right? Man, well, all time's a whole different beast because we do it like by 80s or 90s or something like that.
Yeah.
All time, man.
You're making me miss our drafts, by the way. When you they're a pain in the ass, though. This is easier.
Best voice of all time, man. I'm pulling this one out because during the Grammys they had a lot of Motown, Smokey Robinson, came out on stage and everything, and I was like, well, that's cool as hell. Everybody loves Smokey, but it got me thinking of Sam Cooke from Motown days. Sam Cooke's voice, man, just is out of this world, and like that's been stuck with me. It might not be. I mean, there's no right answer. There's absolutely no right answer, but Sam Cooke's for me, that's as good as it gets. I mean, him and like Sinatra's really great, and Nat King Cole. Like you get way back into the days with some of those voices and stuff, man. Like even Mariah Carey, like just from skill and ability, like her incredible voice. But man, Sam Cooke is just like that's soul, and that's a lot of heart in those songs. Like that's a lot of ballad songs too. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's just me being a schmooze now these days. I don't know.
I had him ranked really high. Aaron Quinn and I did a top 10 power rankings of vocalists, and I had him ranked really high. Funny you mentioned Smokey Robinson. By the way, I don't confer with what your answers are before I hear them. I'm fans and people watching and listening are hearing them. I'm hearing them the same time they are. I don't know what your answers are. You said Smokey Robinson. I'm a sucker for any type of question like this because it pretty much always leads back to Smokey Robinson. The uniqueness and soulfulness in his voice to me was always unrivaled. And Donny Hathaway's another guy too, Sam Cooke. And I love Ann Hart from Hart, man, or Ann Wilson, I'm sorry, from Hart, just because of God, the power in her voice is just absolutely impeccable. But yeah, there's no wrong answer. These are all subjective, obviously. So there's no real wrong answer.
Franklin, like that's
Whitney. We can go on.
Yeah, Whitney. Jeez,
we can go on forever with those. All right, let's move on here. A restaurant that everyone seems to love, but you think is actually not that good.
This is one where it's like you could pick a chain and you'd be right, but also then people would be like, nobody thinks it's actually good. Like that's one where
I agree.
Get lost, but I don't want. It's not like a local place that I feel that way about.
There is for me, but go ahead.
I really this one I really struggle with. And I think you know what. It's maybe this is just more of an overrated thing because it still tastes good, but I think it's just totally overblown. I don't know if that's the same. I don't know if that's the same.
It's close enough. I know where you're going with that.
For me, it's Chick-fil-A. Like I like the stuff. Like the chicken's pretty good. You can't go wrong with a chicken sandwich. Any of that stuff. Like nuggets are great, but I don't know, man. Like If I'm getting fried chicken, give me some more spice with it. Like I shouldn't have to order a spicy version of what you're making to get some extra flavor out of it. So to me, that's a big one. And like, listen, I'm a huge Popeyes Bojangles mark as it is. So like I'm kind of biased in that respect, but I don't know. I see people go nuts for it online. I'm just kind of like, yeah, whatever. Not me.
That's not a bad answer. I'll tell you this. And yeah, overrated and things that everyone seems to love, but you don't think is that good. That's kind of what overrated is, at least to me anyway. Chick-fil-A is good, but I'm not going to like. There's a new one that just opened up on McKinley, near the McKinley Mall, and I drove past it the other day. The line's like around the corner. I'm like, I don't like Chick-fil-A that much to go there. But anyway, I might upset a couple people with my answer here, but I'm whatever. It is what it is. Trendy media people in Buffalo, and I guess trendy people, hipsters and cool people in general. I don't think Gabriel's Gate is all that good. And I know this is a place that everybody, including you, loves. I don't think it's that good. I think their wings are good. I don't think they're great. I personally, and again, wings and food is subjective. You know this. I know this.
Yep.
I don't like when people talk about when somebody says, hey, what's a great place to go to for wings? To me, you better be saying Bar-Bill and you better be saying 9/11 and almost. I don't need to be hearing Gabriel's Gate. I don't think their wings are all that good, man. It's a decent place. It's a nice place. Nothing special to it. It's one of many nice places kind of like around that area. And again, I know I'm going to piss some people off and they ain't going to like it, but just keeping it real with you, man. I don't think Gabriel Gate is that good. I know everyone else loves it. Not so much me.
Since the pandemic didn't end, whatever, like since we got unleashed from our homes afterwards, something about the way they make the wings is different. And I can't put my finger on it. I just can't I don't know what it is, but it doesn't seem as good as I don't know if they just don't cook them as much or what the deal is, but it's not the same. And and maybe this is just because I've been there 1,000 times and I do like it. I see where you're coming from. I know
I don't hate it.
Totally see where you're coming from, but there's something different about it. Like the sandwiches are still great. It's nice, nice stop to get beers. Like you want wings, great, cool, and get them there. But if I'm just going straight wings, though, there's a few other places I'm probably going to jump to before that, and maybe that's just from going there so many times already. But yeah,
I mean, don't get me wrong. If you're on the phone, you call me and said, "Hey, I'm at Gabe's Gate. Let's grab a beer and have a bite." I'm not gonna say no. I hate Gabe's Gate. It sucks. Just saying, place. Everybody loves the place. I don't think it's that good. All right, let's move around before I get in even more trouble here. What is the most annoying thing about grocery shopping?
Can we do a power list of 5,000 for this? Because good God Almighty.
Nope, just land on one.
There's so many things there. I mean, and listen, I'm a single guy that goes to a grocery store. I can get in and out of there in 10, 15 minutes tops. Like I'm not, I'm not buying for a family. I'm not buying, it's easy. Should be easy. Not usually easy though, because other people are hell. And I can't just like put the, big umbrella, other people make it like, no, that's not what it is. But the thing that drives me nuts is that people think they're the only person shopping in the store at a time. And like, whether it go, just like zipping through, like you're going through the produce section and they're just like, blasting by and you're kind of like, okay, cool. I'm not here. Or coming down the aisle. Like nobody treats it like traffic, like driving traffic in a grocery store. People just come blowing right out of aisles. Like you're walking down the main aisle, just come blowing right out. Just be like, oh, look where you're going. I'm like, how about you do it, stupid? Oh man. Like it's everything about it is just like, and maybe it's just a factor of people wanting to get in and out quickly, which I understand 100%. But there are other people there and people just put the blinders on and they don't give a shit. They just go right through and God help you if you get in their way, because you're going to get screamed at. And it's just everything about it is just stress. That's why I've developed a system. If I'm going to Wegmans, Tops, I can go at almost any time. I'm not going on a weekend, but like during the week, anytime, good. Wegmans, if I'm going at any point during the week, I have certain hours that I will refuse to go there because it'll be batshit crazy.
We Probably, as you said that, I'm like, you know what? We could have our own segment, our own power ranking.
Entire episode.
We could have did a starting five draft literally just on this topic alone and nothing else. I want to say old people. I want to say old people, but then I'm going to get in trouble if I say that. Plus, I'm going to be an old person very soon. My mom's an old person going shopping already. And I don't want to, but it's kind of when you're trying to get in and out of aisles and just old people are just walking like a half a mile freaking, it's annoying. But more than that, I also, and this is, well, two other things. I got to mention them both. I love, like you, I go at different times. I hate going to a store now at night where there's no cashiers and you have to self-checkout. That happens at Tops. Wegmans, all the way until midnight, there's somebody to cash you out. At least one register is open. I'm speaking of West Seneca, at least. Tops, after like 9 o'clock, you have to cash yourself out. Sometimes I got 15, 20 items. I don't want to have to cash myself out. That's annoying. And then the other thing, and this is a New York thing, is the shopping bags. You used to get the plastic shopping bags. Mm-hmm. Now you have to buy your own bag or bring your own bags. You don't have to buy them every time. But right. I always leave them at home. I buy bags. I get my groceries. I take them out at home. I leave the bag in the closet or wherever, and I don't have it in my car. I end up buying more and more. I probably got about 70 bags. And then I seen Tops is selling the bundles of the bags that they took off that you can't get anymore for like $5.99. You know what I'm talking about? The plastic bags. Mm-hmm. I think that's a New York thing because I know in Florida they still give you plastic bags. I'm going down a rabbit hole with bitching about fucking grocery shopping. I probably shouldn't.
Let me tell you, your complaint about the Tops cash outs is very warranted because theirs don't work right half the time because it's very, at least the one that I go to where it's like, put your thing in the bag. And I'm like, okay, I did. And they're like, it's not in the bag. You can't scan another thing. And I'm like, it is in the bag. Please. I taking it out, put it back in, take it out, put it back in. And then it's like, the thing is like, then it refuses to let you scan anything else. And you had to have somebody come over. And I'm like, this thing is stupid. And it won't read that I put the thing in the bag. And then it's constantly waiting for the person attending it to come over to, to put the code in and just let it be okay. And I'm like, why do the wait? Like, I get you're trying to not get ripped off, but like, fuck dude, like it's right there. Like it's a loaf of bread. How much can it weigh?
I insulted old people. That was wrong. I mean, old people. I love old people, but they take forever in the store. It's so hard to get. It's so hard to get around them in the aisles, and they clog them all up. If you go on the list, especially if you go into like the late morning, forget about it, man. It's over. All right, two more here.
My other favorite. Oh, see, you got me going here. My other favorite one is like, you're going down the aisle. Somebody has like their card on the one side. And then they're on the other side of the aisle picking stuff off the shelf. And I'm like, no. You
don't get to do
No. You don't take up the entire aisle to look at stuff. That's not how this works.
I can't believe we spent much time talking about I guess we've had a bunch of
grumpy old man segment now.
Joe and Pat have had some pent up frustration, I guess, about grocery shopping here. All right, second last one. What is something that you'll never do again in your life?
Jeez, man, that's now you got me down the customer service ramble hole. I will never fly United Airlines ever again. Never, ever, 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 ever again. One bad instance is all it took, and I don't do as much travel for sports stuff as I used to. Mm-hmm. But if like the cheap flight thing comes through and the cheapest one's on United, I'm like, what's the cheapest one for any other airline? Because I am not getting on your goddamn airplane, you crooks. Oh God, I hate them. And if you're flying through Dulles, kiss 3 days goodbye. You might be living in DC by the end of it. I hate it. I hate them so much. They're so bad.
I am going to go with something I'll never do. I went to Darien Lake. When I first started dating my wife, within a couple months, we went to Darien Lake and went with my friend who was my roommate at the time, and I believe his girlfriend too. And I am horrified of heights. And I signed up and paid, I want to say it was like the Sky Screamer or something like that. It's some shit that takes you up like 200 feet in the air or whatever, and then you just go flying over the water. And I'm horrified of heights, but I didn't want now it's my wife at the time, the girl I was dating. I didn't want her thinking I was like, some little bitch. So I said, you know what? I'm doing this shit. This ain't nothing. Blah, 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 blah. Because she was doing it. And my friend, we were all doing it. I didn't want to do it, but I signed up and it was like $30 or something like that too. Anyway, throughout the day, anxiety started kicking in, and I started getting nervous and scared. I seen other people doing it. I was like, please. By the grace of God, I swear to you, Joe, maybe 40 minutes before, because it was for a specific time too. Like
Right.
you were, you they had an appointment. 40 minutes before it started pouring out, and it got canceled. And I was relieved, man. I think when push came to shove, I would have chickened out at the very last second because I would have had a panic attack. Probably would have fainted. I am so deathly afraid of heights. So anyway, something I'll never do again is I'll never even sign up again to do anything, any ride or like bungee jumping or skyline stuff like that where you're hanging that high. I'll never, ever do that shit, man.
I assume your wife knows the story, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure she has to know the story. Now, would that have changed her mind had it come to that? She would have been like, I can't go out with this guy.
I know. Like the premise of our entire relationship is going to be based on if I have enough guts to go on a 300 feet above ground skyline or some shit like that. That's the way I was thinking. I was being an idiot, kind of macho kind of guy saying, I could do this, but I couldn't do it. I was scared, and I think God bailed me out with a nice rainstorm. All right, last question here. What is your favorite love story movie? Oh, come across to me as like to somebody who enjoys the sappy kind of movies all that much.
No. It's I'm a long ways removed from having like the date nights with the the romance movie date nights, and it's I don't know. That's not something that really happens anymore, really. But
gotta have a couple of those like good movies that are just a good love story that you're like, this is a good movie, man.
There's a couple that stick out. I think Pretty Woman's great.
Sure,
Pretty Woman's a great one. Sabrina. I think Sabrina is a really nice one. That one had like what I think there was another Richard Gere one. I mean, I think it's been made a couple of times. I think it was like a remake years ago, or maybe it was Harrison Ford. Maybe, I don't know. But I remember the crux of the story. I'm not doing myself a lot of favors here, but I remember the crux of the story being like, "Oh, that's really nice. That's really cute." Now, I could, if I wanted to be a troll, I could have been like Armageddon and have everybody just retching, listening, like hearing me try to fuck that up. Like I don't know. It's not a genre I really dig into too much. I kind of like the one in Titanic, honestly, with Jack and Rose, even though
love story, sure,
it's twisted in its way, but it's incredibly sweet. That one might actually be my favorite, but that's because I'm a big Kate Winslet softie, and Leo's an incredible actor. So like, I don't know, but yeah. I think I took 3 off the board. It might be Titanic. I don't know.
I don't know if you've seen this movie. It doesn't on the surface seem so much maybe like a love story. Have you ever seen The Crow?
Oh yeah.
I love The Crow, man. I mean, you got Eric Draven, and he's going to get married. His fiance, a gang comes in. They rape and murder her. They murder him. And dude literally comes back from the dead to avenge what happened to his fiance. And he did it all for her. And then at the very end, he goes back to her, you know what I mean? In the cemetery. Great moment. Again, it feels more like a violent action type movie. And of course, that's the movie where Brandon Lee dies, like in real life. Yeah. But anyway, it's actually a really good love story if you think about it, man. What he did, twisted. Absolutely. Of course, it's twisted.
Ooh.
But he comes back from the fucking dead to avenge his wife, takes out that whole gang so he could be, and then he's back with her at the very end. I just thought that movie was awesome.
You know what? It's another movie that's really good that had the same kind of storyline. Ghost.
Sure.
Swayze, Demi Moore, and that scumbag dude that I'll never be able to look at him ever again without being like, God, I hate that guy. Oh, hit him with another bus, please.
Oh, man. All right. That is going to do it for this episode. That was fun. I like doing those kind of things, man. We'll do some more of those next week. Make sure you follow Joe on Twitter at Joe Yerdon. Maintenance Day podcast, Mondays. In fact, now that this one's ending, if you haven't already, make sure you hear Joe and Lance talk about the Sabres coming out of the All-Star break. I haven't listened to it yet because, to be fair, it literally just dropped an hour or so before we're taping. But I'm going to be checking that out. Of course, subscribe to Noted Hockey. This is Joe's baby, man. He's working his ass off for it again. $5 per month, $50 per year. Cannot go wrong. Tons of Sabres and hockey stuff from a unique angle, stuff that you're only going to get when you subscribe. So make sure you do that. Again, it's notedhockey.substack.com. That's about it for today. Have a good week. It's good to have you on. Next week, there'll actually be, well, one game. I know they play Calgary on Saturday. They'll be in the midst of hockey action again. So we'll have fun doing that. Thanks as always for doing the pod, buddy.
Appreciate it, Pat. Thanks for having me. And yeah, we'll get everybody tuned up for the final run of Sabres After Dark for the season.
Yeah. Talk to you guys later this week.